Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not to Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about the TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Preacher. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break things down bit by bit. There's a whole situation with Tulip I really want to talk about. The fact is, obviously, like, coming back from the dead, no simple task and stuff like that, so she's kind of getting, getting used to being back and everything. What I am wondering about, because obviously she doesn't remember everything quite well. It seems like she remembers pieces of Purgatory, but it doesn't seem like she remembers all that. She definitely doesn't remember the whole God thing, but it seems like it's coming back to her bits and pieces. What I think is interesting is it was like God saying, like, get these assholes out of here. So I don't know whether that's referencing the Grail or referencing the Langels, like what's going on in that situation. Because at first it didn't, it's like, part of me is like, so are they setting Tulip up to be like God's assassin? Like that, like, it makes sense either way. I guess it would make sense, like either the Langels or, obviously the person she went after first was the Grail, but I guess that just might because it was just kind of like, I don't know. It seemed like she's kind of being aggroed up to do that, but I didn't realize it until we seeing that bit again this episode, kind of getting a little more context in what God said exactly. Also, he looks a lot more sinister, so that's why part of me is thinking, like, I'm starting to think that might not be God. Something might have followed her back when she was coming back to life, like something like latched on. Hell, for all we know, that could be like Lucifer in disguise. For all we, you never know, like, because it has like this red aura around it. Last time we saw God, he had like this bright white light to him, but maybe that's just because God's angry, so he's got like this angry, evil aura around him. I don't know. I'm kind of leaning more towards the thought that that might not be God. That might be something pretending to be him, kind of using Tulip as something, because it latched onto her because it saw exactly what kind of person she is. The whole O'Hare family knew it could use her as a means of getting a job done. So maybe it's the Langels, maybe it's the Grail, maybe it's both. But I feel like that's what that seems like. That's setting her up to be like some assassin. But ultimately, we'll kind of have to wait and see on that. It is kind of sad. Obviously, I'm skipping around and stuff, but like when she goes, yeah, I can't never seem to do anything right. It's kind of like mirroring like her dad, like what he said in Purgatory. So it's kind of like, I think it's sadly that part of Tulip, like, of being an O'Hare, like, it's just kind of like, all we do is cause problems, we never do anything right, and I think maybe that's going to be something we'll see over the season, her kind of, like her, because she's striving so hard to make up for the mistakes that she's made, she's going to end up making more, and it's just going to make her go down a probably dangerous path or something, because she's trying to correct so many mistakes, but, I don't know, we'll have to see on that. But in this episode, obviously, Jesse, like his grandma says, like, oh, you'll have to work off, kind of like, because that's why Jesse doesn't want to leave immediately, because he knows, like, once you owe his grandmother a debt, you don't walk away from that so easily. But we got a little bit of a taste of that at the beginning of the episode. This is back when he was younger. And the fact of the matter is, there was this dude who was on his way to be a vice principal, that whole schoolgirl situation he was in. And he got behind on payments, and Jesse was like, I told you not to get behind on payments. Turns out the machine that she has, it seems like it sucks out people's souls. I don't know whether it entirely sucks out their soul, or, because we do know that the Langels were in the soul game. We learned that last season, so that's why I was curious about what the machine was. I would assume this is the same machine that they hook Jesse's mom up to as well, because it's like, oh, your payment. So I don't know whether it's all your soul or just a good chunk of it, like whatever I guess she feels will be enough. Because it also seems like she devours souls, because that's why she's able to kind of like stay so spry and stuff, as Jody kind of put it, making those slurping sounds, so, which is interesting. It seems like she might have her sights set on Tulip because of the whole situation, because like, oh, she being left alone with Tulip's body and everything, but also her being like, oh yeah, Tulip, I don't give a damn about that girl, but she is so beautiful and so young. I'm like, because I think even Jesse knows, like, yeah, you want her soul. It's like, no way in hell I'm letting that happen. I don't like you, and even if I did like you, that's the woman I love. I ain't gonna let you do that. But it's just extra more middle fingers because it is his grandmother. After everything she's done, Jody being the one that killed his dad, and just everything, because even his grandma tried to be like, oh, I loved your mom. It's like, yeah, sure you did, grandma, because it's like, yeah, like, we saw your treatment of her. So Jesse wasn't around by then, but wasn't dead because he was a baby then, but I'm sure he knows even by now, because I'm guessing his mom was like, we don't know what happened to her. The last time we saw her was like, she was grandma cut her open and got the picture of Jesse and his dad like last episode, but we don't know what happened beyond, oh, hook her up to the machine. So she's dead, yeah, she's there, but You know, that might be the reason why. Like, in her need to punish her daughter, it was again saying the same lines to her, saying the same lines to Jesse as she said to her daughter, being like, "Oh, you are the most important thing to me." It's like, it seems like the only thing you care about is yourself, and just everyone else is just a means to an end to kind of keep your whole situation going. But nevertheless, I'm going on a bit of a tangent. So a lot of stuff I wasn't expecting in this. Obviously, like, there's the tension between Jesse and Cassidy, which I love that kind of escalates more and more, because like they're kind of annoyed, being like, Jesse comes in and Cassidy's kind of annoyed because he was spending time with Tulip. Like, obviously there's bad blood between them now, and Jesse tries to make things up later on. He's like, "Oh, I'm sorry about everything," and Cassidy's like, "Yeah," but he's like, "Just so if you want to, I could get TC to drive you somewhere." He's like, "What are you talking about?" It's like, "Yeah, you can go now," because it's like, yeah, he hasn't, like, neither one wants to forgive the other, because knowing what he knows about Cassidy now, it's like, you're not going to be anywhere near Tulip. I guess it's a combination of just knowing that there was a thing between them two. The fact of the matter is that he's so close to her, and I think it's also the whole vampire thing about, like, you potentially wanting to turn her anyway. Maybe, I doubt this is a thing, but maybe on some level Jesse still thinks that there's some part of you that still wants to do that, so he's super pissy towards him for that. But obviously Cassidy has his reasons too, because he blames Jesse for everything. Like, all this happened because of you and your search for God, your whole Messiah thing. It's like, also, if it wasn't for you, me and Tulip would have been the thing, but you had to come back into the picture. You're my mate and everything, but I hate you now. So it's kind of like, I think that's where a lot of his hate gets derived from too, because it's like, because he loves Tulip. So he wants Tulip for himself, because it's like, oh, let's just run away together, you know. So like I said, it's definitely going to be interesting seeing where they end up this season, since it's already seeing where they are kind of butting heads. But I wasn't expecting Tulip to kind of get her revenge so soon, because she saw something in the scope. She's like, "I'm gonna go hunting." I was like, "Oh, is she gonna?" I was like, is that some part of her coming back to life? She's kind of aggro and stuff like that because she wants to kill. I was like, "Oh, is it a rabbit or something?" It's like, start beating, and it turns out to be Featherstone. I was like, "Wait, what?" Start beating the crap out of her, and then lo and behold, who's there? Hoover's there too. Because it turns out Jesse knows the only way to get out of this deal is by, well, I'm assuming that they kept an eye on Jesse the entire time. Like, they've been nearby anyway, following him. So it wasn't even just his call to Hair Star. It was just the fact that it's like, oh yeah, like, they were already following him anyway, keeping an eye on. You know, he's a Messiah and everything, so gotta put that in action, you know. So nevertheless, Jesse thinks the only way he's going to get out of this is by using Genesis on his grandmother, but as he saw, Genesis still doesn't work. So Jesse figures out what I pretty much guessed last season, because of, well, what's the big missing factor for him? He doesn't have that 1% of his soul. Last season, I kind of theorized it was kind of like because that one piece of his soul had Genesis in it, so unless Genesis is fully whole, its ability doesn't work. But now in retrospect, I'm thinking more so like, it's more so because of Jesse's soul. It's not necessarily because Genesis is part of his soul and it got part. Maybe it is, but I'm starting to lean more towards the thought it fused with Jesse's soul. It likes Jesse's soul, but Jesse's soul isn't Jesse's soul right now because it's not complete. There's a 1% thing off. Yeah, but I'm thinking that's why some of the ability is coming out just without all the, you know, why it's coming out all echoey, like kind of like scrambled and kind of muffled, is because Jesse's not at 100%. Like, the moment he gets his soul back, it seems like that's what Jesse's kind of piecing together too, because he figures that's the only missing piece. So he's trying to make good with Hair Star so he can make sure he can get that piece of his soul back. It's also interesting too to see him in India still doing what they're doing. Like, if you don't submit, if you don't pray to Humper Dude, then True Messiah, that whole situation. So ended up killing everyone. I love that, like, things in that got brutal too, because he ended up like running out of bullets. He grabs the gun from one of his own men, shoots through that guy just to kill the guy that he's fighting. Even at one point, you see part of his eye kind of blow out, and then like the flesh from his eye kind of lifting up. I was like, that's brutal. Kicking the dude in the nuts, but the dude won't submit to Humper Dude. I wonder, like, how many people know about Humper Dude, like especially like higher up. Like I said, that's the whole point of his whole situation of like. That's what the Samson Squad does. They handle, like, you know, false idols type of situation. So if you're not praying to Humper Dude, you're not worshiping him as a true Messiah, which even that's just a stay in until they get Jesse in. But Jesse's supposed to have stepped up last season, but he hasn't. So it's kind of like they got to work with the Humper Dude situation until Jesse kind of comes to his senses. So that's why he's kind of jumping at the opportunity for Jesse. So Tulip and Cassidy kind of get brought in. I mean, that's after Jesse kind of let Featherstone and Hoover go. But Tulip was pissed about that. She was like, "You what? What are you doing, Jesse?" And he finally explains. That's why Tulip is all about doing this too. Cassidy, like I said, has his reservations because it's like, oh, I don't want to take orders from Jesse. But for Tulip, it's like Jesse literally gave up a piece of his soul for us to save us from the same, which is like, yeah, I guess we didn't get to see that part of the conversation, but he finally told them about his soul situation because he never told them last season, like, where's that soul that came, where that soul came from in that whole situation. Like, even during the arguments with Tulip last season, he didn't really ever explain, like, oh yeah, like what he gave up was his soul. So there's that whole thing. But he explains his plan, which is like, I need Genesis to use on my grandma so she can force us to, like, once again, because it's like, even if they run, like, because it could always turn bad and Tulip could end up suffering the ramifications for it. So, which Jesse also says he's done with the whole Messiah thing, which I don't know if he's done with the Messiah thing. He's definitely done with the grill, especially now that he learned from Tulip and Cassidy about the whole like Jenny situation, especially now he remembers her being like the jazz singer from last season, like now realizing that the manipulation ran that far back, even that far back. It's like, you were manipulating me, plus you shot my girlfriend, you know. I think he is true to his word that he is going to kill them. They're all going to die when it's all said and done, when he does get his soul back, but he needs to get his soul back. So obviously they start problems with the Boyds, which is interesting because it's like, oh, why do the Boyds hate Jesse so much? It's like, because he killed someone, but Jody says that, but at the same time, TC is like an ex, and it's like, which one is it? And he goes, well, you'd have to ask them, which I guess it's probably both. I guess maybe it's kind of like a Romeo and Juliet type of situation where he got mixed up with Boyd. So that type of thing, which might play a big role this season, might see that kind of circle back and complicate things between him and Tulip. Might be a direction they send. I mean, it might not be necessarily like, oh yeah, there's love in between them anymore. It might be a situation of like, oh no, we want you dead now. Maybe the murdered person was the ex. I don't know. It'll probably be a little while before we get the full story. So I love Cassidy kind of getting shot. TC's like, don't worry, bud, I won't leave your side. And then Jody's like, yeah, they're getting away, and gets up and walks. And he's like, what? You're literally going to leave me here lying in the dirt? And there's that moment between him and Tulip where Tulip's like, oh, I love you, Cassidy. And Cassidy's kind of, which is like, that situation is going to get even more complicated. Because I don't think Tulip really realizes that, like, Cassidy wasn't just infatuated with you. He's been in love with you since he first met you. Like, he's been in love since season 1, you know? Since you kicked him out the window, and then he laid eyes on you while he was bleeding in the backseat of the car, you know? But sadly for Jesse, things didn't work out. I was like, is it really going to be that simple getting your soul back? It's like, no, because they made an artificial one, and the sad circumstances made Tulip think like, oh man, he's back to being a Messiah. So, plus, like I said, whatever that quote-unquote God, because once again, we don't know if that really is God, kind of got in her head and was like, oh no, like, do this, get those assholes out of here. So she kind of went aggro, but they got away with his soul. Plus now Hare knows that that's all Jesse cared about. So now I even love Hoover being like, oh, so how'd it go? And then Hare looks at him like, shut up, you idiot. So now he's going to leave Jesse in this situation because it's like, oh, this is his way to make Jesse suffer for his decisions and stuff like that. So, and his grandma's suspicious. Like, his grandma kind of doesn't care because she's like, oh, I know you're up to something. You're going to try and get away, but you're going to fail miserably. So till then, get to work. So that means going back to collecting souls, which obviously he had a bad problem with anyway. Like, cause we even saw it in the past where Jesse ended up like that vice principal dude, well, potential on his way to being a vice principal dude. Like, Jesse kind of kicked and beat on him, and then you have Jody looking at him. I think Jesse does that because it's like, if he doesn't, like, maybe he thinks if he does that, the guy will get a little bit of a less, I don't know, maybe there'll be less backlash on Jesse or something. Because I guess because a guy coming up short, maybe that might come back on Jesse. But if Jesse kind of goes a little more aggressive, maybe his grandma won't be as strict on him. I don't know. I mean, it is kind of something that Cassidy touched on. He's like, oh yeah, you said that Jesse has a dark side, but Tulip's like not like his family, which is like, because even Cassidy was looking at the pictures and shit and like, yeah, this family's super messed up. So, I mean, that might be the sad thing is, like, Jesse only became like this because he was raised by this family for a good chunk of his life. We don't know how long he was with with the Langels, you know, in Angelville, you know, so. But for now, it seems like he's gonna have to work for his grandma and probably kind of go back to old work, and there's no getting his soul back anytime soon. So there's that. But we do see that that teacher, or vice principal dude, I keep saying that, almost vice principal dude, is there in the place that Jesse's cleaning up. So he's not dead. So maybe it's like little by little she's been feeding off his soul, or maybe something happens to someone who's maybe like once she got her taste of his soul, like he's just held captive forever. And maybe that's what Jesse's worried about happening, not just to himself, but to Tulip as well. I wonder what the same thing happened to Cassidy. Like, Cassidy's a vampire. Like, do vampires have souls? Like I said, because that's also being kept hush hush what he is. Because even Jody's like, what's up with that umbrella hat? He's like, I was like, oh yeah, it's a skin condition. Yeah, kind of leaving it at that, not really bringing up the whole vampire thing. So it is a very interesting predicament our protagonists find themselves in. Obviously caught between both sides. Obviously, like, you know, the Grail's still going to be doing its thing. His grandmother still doesn't know about that whole side of things because they made sure to dispose of the bodies. He knows it. His grandma knows he's up to something, but he was able to kind of hide enough of it because if that comes back, you know, it's probably going to be like his grandma's forcing answers out of him. He doesn't want his grandma to know exactly what's going on. There's a part of me that wonders if she knows something's off because, like, when she had told Jesse come give her a kiss, she kind of like started like she felt her face where he was and kind of smells her hand. So it's like I think she's trying to like she might be able to smell that something's different about his soul, whether it's the Genesis thing or the missing soul thing, or even both. I mean, missing piece of his soul. Either way, that seems like that's going to be something, what that might have been alluding to. So that's going to be interesting. And once again, there's also like the tie-in and going back to what I said about Cassie, about what, she said. The interesting thing is, it's like, because I'm sure she would do whatever she can to like get Cassidy and Tulip to be together, just because it's like if she can break them up, Jesse and Tulip, then that probably means Jesse will have no choice but to stay. He won't feel the need to try and leave. Plus, but also, you know, that's what I'm feeling, but we'll see. Because she wouldn't do anything. Like, she might have her problems with Jesse, but if anyone's going to hurt Jesse, it's going to be her. Like, because she needs to hurt him. You know, maybe she'd do the same thing that she did to his mom. Which the last thing I think Jesse would want is his grandmother getting any piece of his soul, especially with Genesis in him. Like, once again, going back to it, it's like the last thing you want is her to know about that because she's going to try and take advantage of that situation. So it's definitely going to be interesting going forward. Like I said, I'm curious to see, will we see like they butt heads with Happy Soul Go. You know, I already got problem with the Boyds. It seemed like their biggest issue right now. But because this whole soul game, so it kind of makes me think. That's why I still keep thinking like Happy Soul Go might come back into story, because especially because it's like, oh, do you know who we work for? That never really got answered last season. So plus it also turns out that there is still someone that even Hairstar answers to, because it's like, oh yeah, like he answers to an All-Father, ooh, or what exactly that is situation. Still another thing we're kind of left in the dark about. So I'm very interested to see what the next episode has in store for us with all of this continuing forward. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and good